Hello, awesome artists. This week we are going to finish up our picture that we started last week. Now, you should have completed your drawing across your paper. Remember I said to use pencil because you might need to erase some today. And the center should be finished and colored in a realistic way. So, what are we doing with the other sides? Well, we're going to have some fun trying out some other styles. On this side, we are going to use Cubism. Now, Cubism was a style of art where the artists would make things more blocky. They would break it down to kind of a basic type shape. Picasso did Cubism, and there's other artists too that were fabulous cubists. It's really an interesting looking style. On this side, we're going to be doing pop art. One of the most famous pop artists was Andy Warhol. He was known for his very bright colors. Now, pop is short for popular, and it dealt with things that were popular in the culture. So these objects you've drawn are going to be your pop art. And we're going to play with the color and some design elements to give it that look that'll scream, pop art, pop art, pop art. All right, let's get started with Cubism first. Now, I use a Sharpie so that you could see it better on the screen, so I can't erase. You might want to erase parts of yours. It might make it a little bit easier. Now, with Cubism, we're trying to make it more cubey, right? So we need to find ways to straighten out our lines. So where you have curves, like a curved line, you want to find ways to straighten out parts of it, all right? To give it more of that blocky look. So that helped out a little bit, it kind of straightened that out. Now I am working with these existing lines. You can erase, all right? That might make it a little bit easier. I'm gonna come over here to my leaf, and it's almost gonna take a diamond shape. Doing my turtle feet. So for his head, I'm gonna try to make that a straight line. Slope down to get a straight line, and then curve. So I'm just trying to get rid of those curves like that, okay? It's not hard. You just kind of got to look at it for a second and see the shape. Now, pop artists did, Cubist artists, getting my two sides confused. Cubist artists did a lot of different subject matters. Sometimes they would create things that were still lives, objects that were arranged on a table. Sometimes they would do exteriors, like the outside of houses. Sometimes they would do people. And I've seen examples of modern cubists that take popular items. Oh my goodness, it's like they're blurring the pop art and the cubism. But they took things like Winnie the Pooh and turned it into a cubist picture. I know, that was kind of a funny one, huh? Winnie the Pooh is cubism. When I think of Winnie the Pooh, I think of a very round and roly-poly Pooh Bear. So just kind of block that up a little bit. Now, when you're doing your project, if you feel like one side might be a little bit easier to do cubism than the other, you can reverse the two, all right? If you want to make this side pop art and this side cubism, you can do whichever. It doesn't matter to me, that's fine. Because sometimes one might lend itself better to changing it into cubism. And I don't want to make this like torture for you. So find which side is best, all right? So that's, I don't know, that's pretty fun. And I can come back in and add a couple other things to my picture that weren't there before. Just to change it up a little bit. Some of the shapes, I'm almost doing like a halo around them. It's like I'm expanding the shape out just a little bit. You don't have to do this. I felt like this side was a little more empty than my other side. So I wanted to add something to it to fill it up just a little bit more. There is some empty space out here, and it does balance itself out because we have empty space up here and empty space down here. So the picture kind of balances out. It just was a little bit too empty. I feel better about that now. All right, so pop art, like I was saying, very bright, very colorful, poppy, think like comic bookish. There's a lot of things like that have those comic book colors, reds and yellows and blues, those primaries, and they use lots of dots and lots of lines that make it look like pow, bam, woo, look at me. That's kind of what pop art is. It's a very look at me kind of a thing. So what I'm gonna do is create, you know, like one of those POW balloons. If you've ever seen like comic books and stuff, and the good guy is fighting the bad guy, and you see pow, bam, crash, that kind of a thing. So I put that around there. I'm going to put some lines coming out of it. And one of the other things with pop art is heavily outlined. There's a lot of, not all of it, but some of it is very heavily outlined, especially the ones that kind of have that comic book look to them. So I'm going to come back and thicken my lines. Let's talk about this for a second though, because if you are using, you're supposed to do this in pencil first. If you are going to use watercolor, you could outline this with black crayon or Sharpie marker, not regular marker, because regular marker will bleed when it gets wet. So if you're doing watercolor, that would not be a good idea. If you are doing, oh shoot, I was trying to make that blocky. I'm still in my Cubist mind. If you are doing crayon or colored pencil or marker, sometimes it's best if you wait till the end to go over it with black, because colored pencil, not as much, but markers and crayons, if you use the black first to outline everything and then color it in, sometimes you'll smear your picture up. Black is a very, very, very powerful color. And when you go and just like kind of barely touch it and pull it, you're gonna smear that black from wherever it is into the color you're using. I did that with yellow, and it really kind of muddies up that yellow color. So if you want your colors to stay nice and bright, what I would do is color with the colors first that you're going to use in your picture, and then come back into the picture and then outline with black. All right? Sharpie, though, doesn't bleed. Well, it doesn't bleed when you touch it with something else. It does bleed through the table. I don't know if you see the little black marks I have on my green table. So yeah, make your family happy. Do not use Sharpie without a piece of paper underneath it, because you don't want the Sharpie to bleed through and get on your furniture at home. Yeah, that will not make people happy. So I'm going back and I'm outlining this pow kind of thing. Pow, cupcakes. Just to make it really nice and bright. Because like that, when you have that black line, it's going to make the other colors that you put into your picture really pop. They're going to seem brighter when you have that real heavy black line. So I just come through and I thicken up my lines. So, and I'd finish out, ooh, got blurry here, sorry guys. I'd finish out tracing everything on that sign with really thick lines, all right? So, after you finish all of that, there's the coloring. Now the coloring really helps bring home the idea of Cubism and of pop art. So on this side is my pop art. Now one of the other things that we see in pop art are these little dots. Not in all pop art, but in some of the pop art. It's almost like they blew up like a printed comic book and you see these little dots of color. That's how printing used to work. Not so much nowadays. I had one of the students this week pull out a comic book and he's like, I don't see dots. This was started, pop art was like back in the 60s, I think, 70s, up into the 80s. And back then, when they printed things, they used small dots of color. And when you looked at it, like it looked like a solid color. But if you blow that up, then you see the dots. So in our version of pop art, we're blowing it up so we can see the dots. So I made my apple pink and I put red dots on it. I made my background yellow and I used a yellow-orange dot and then I outlined it with a red-orange. I tried to stick with a lot of primary colors, blues, reds, yellows, and then I threw in some reddy purples, some oranges, and some greens. I didn't want to overcomplicate this side with a bunch of colors. I wanted to keep it very bright and primary. On this side, I did the Cubism. Now here, I kind of tried to darken some of my colors up a little bit. I mixed some black into it to create some shadows going around the objects. But it just definitely has a different mood by how we colored it, all right? This is very bright and happy. This is more calm and mellow over here. And then we got the middle, which is just, you know, real life. It's real, it's reality, realism. So we're gonna do Cubism, realism, and pop art, all right? I can't wait to see your works. I know that they are gonna be awesome. So please make sure you finish these up and try to submit them by Monday evening, okay? Try to get them done by Monday evening. And this needs to be submitted on Schoology. Don't forget, there's a white folder towards the top of Mr. E's page that tells you how to submit your artwork on Schoology. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.